Okay, I'm back in my code editor and I'm located in lecture 21 folder, which is located in full stack-course 5 examples folder. And this is a similar application to what we've written before. In other words, we're going to be creating a shopping list, except now we're going to be creating two separate independent shopping lists that are going to be sitting side by side. So we're going to need a shopping list service, but we don't want it to be a singleton anymore because we don't want one shopping list affecting the other one. So the way we're going to do that is basically create two separate controllers. One is going to be responsible for list 1, shopping list 1, and the other one is going to be responsible for shopping list 2. Except we want to enhance the shopping list service just a little bit. We want to be able to tell the shopping list service that there might be a max number of items that we might ask it to limit itself to. Obviously, we're going to be creating the shopping list service using a factory, because in every single controller we need to create a new one, and sometimes we'll need to create one that doesn't have a max item limit, and sometimes it will have a max item limit. So let's go to our app.js and see how we did that. The first thing we want to do is actually scroll down to our shopping list service and modify it a little bit. In this case, we want to specify that there might be a max number of items that we want to limit the shopping list to. So the code is almost identical except for the service.addItem method. And in this case, just before adding our item, we actually need to check if the max items is undefined, which means the caller of our service didn't even bother to redefine the max number of items, in which case we're going to go ahead and assume that there is no max items, it's unlimited, and we'll go ahead and push the item onto our list. Or we have to check if there is in fact a max items specified, meaning it's not undefined. We need to check that the number of items in our list is less than the number of max items allowed. And if that is the case, we can then go ahead and add that item to the item list, our items array. If this condition is false, then we're going to have to throw an error. And here you see an example of throwing an error. An error is a built-in JavaScript class, and we'll give it a message, max items of max items is reached, so the user knows, or the user of this service knows, that we've reached our limit. Everything else about the service is exactly the same as we've done before. Now we need to create the factory. Well, the first thing we need to do is scroll all the way up and look at our factory declaration. So the factory declaration is .factory. We're going to give it the factory name, which is our shopping list factory, and the function that is going to be our factory function, which is in this case again shopping list factory. Note that we don't need to register the shopping list service here with the .service method. And that's because we don't want Angular to create the shopping list service for us. We want to create that service ourselves. Let's go ahead and scroll to the shopping list factory. And you can see it's very simple, and you can see also that we're using the kind of the function approach here instead of the object literal approach. And our factory is a function that takes the max number of items, and it will return a new shopping list service passing it the max number of items. And so what will get returned as part of the execution of the shopping list factory is a function that takes these max number of items and returns the shopping list service. Now all that's left is to take a look at the code of the controllers. Let's go ahead and scroll up to the first controller, which is called list1. That's how we nicknamed it in our template because we're using a controller as syntax. You can see that we're injecting the shopping list factory into our shopping list controller 1. And in order for us to get a new shopping list, you could see that we're using our shopping list factory and simply executing it. Note, well, we're not passing anything into it, which means the max number of items is going to be undefined. But since the shopping list factory refers to a function that is being returned out of it, putting parens behind it will execute that function and will execute the new shopping list service. And that's why we have shopping list as our local variable here as an instance of the shopping list service. Once we have that, we obviously can now start calling methods on it like get items. And you can see here when we add the item, we could just say shopping list.addItem, list1.item name, list1.item quantity. So very similar to the way we used it before. In the shopping list controller 2, you could see that we're likewise injecting the shopping list factory into the shopping list controller 2. But this time, when we execute the shopping list factory, we pass it the max number of items as 3, which means our shopping list, the local variable, the shopping list that's referring to the shopping list service, is now going to be limited to 3 items only. So therefore, we need to change our add item method slightly. We need to make sure that if an error is being thrown from our shopping list, that we catch it and do something about it. Well, that's the try-catch block that you see here that exists in JavaScript. So we're going to try to add the item, and if the number of items in the shopping list is going to exceed 3, it will throw an error, in which case we're going to catch that error, and we're actually going to set a property on our scope, or really on the instance of our controller, since we're using the controller as syntax, that is going to get exposed to our HTML template, and we're going to set the value of our error message to error.message that is going to come from that error that we threw from the shopping list service. Okay, let's save all that, and since I have my browser sync running, let's go to the browser and take a look. So we basically have both shopping lists side by side, and we could start filling it out. So we'll fill it out with cookies again, 3 bags of cookies, and we'll say we want chips. We'll get 4 bags of that, 4 bags of that, and we'll say sugary drinks. We'll get 10 bottles of that, and we'll say Pepto-Bismol. We'll get 3 bottles of that. As you can see, I was able to add the 4th item without any problems. Let's see if we can do the same thing for shopping list 2 that is supposed to be limited to 3 items. Let's go ahead and again say cookies, 3 bags, and we'll say chips, 4 bags. Let's make it 5 bags for good measure. And we'll say sugary drinks, 10 bottles, and we'll say Pepto-Bismol, 2 bottles. Ooh, and look at that. When we add the next item, you could see that the error message displayed max item 3 reached. And you could see there's only 3 items in our shopping list. So point is, you could see that they're acting independently. The number of items here does not affect the number of items here, and also the items are differently, which means there's a different instance of the shopping list service being used in our controller 1 versus our controller 2. Now we do have a little bit of an ugliness here, which is this error message that is sitting here no matter what. If we refresh here, you'll see that the error message is already here. Ideally, we would really like it not to show up here at all until an actual error occurs. We're going to take care of that in a future lecture. Let's summarize. The .factory function allows us to produce any type of object or function. That includes a service in even a singleton, but it's not limited to that. The .service, on the other hand, is just a more limited factory. It limits us to creating a service that is a singleton and also one that's very hard to custom configure. The way you invoke the .factory method is very similarly to the way you invoke the .service or really .controller method. You give it a name and a factory function. The name you give to your factory is what gets injected into other components. The injected factory function refers to whatever is returned in the factory function. It can be an object literal with a property that's a function that creates something for us. It can also directly be a function that itself creates something for us.